Hello and welcome to Aspiring Leadership, Making the Move into Leadership. Each week, we'll be chatting with various leaders from all different walks of life, learning from their experiences and sharing their advice. It's the perfect podcast for somebody wishing to step into a new leadership role or for a leader who's already there, wishing to continue their development. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Hey everybody, happy Thursday, and you're very welcome to this week's episode of Aspiring Leadership, Making the Move into Leadership. As always, a huge thanks to everybody who's been tuning in every week. It's been great to see the listenership growing week over week. And as always, so grateful for all the lovely texts that both myself and the guests who take part in the podcast are getting. It isn't an easy thing to do, particularly for the guests to come on here. And last week's guest, Stephen, was fantastic, and you could tell how much preparation he had done. And a lot of the other guests have also done the same. They've gone to the trouble to prepare, reflect on their success so far, and then communicate it in a lovely, eloquent, humble way that hopefully all of you are taking some learnings from, because I know I've taken tremendous learnings from what people have shared to date. Um, as always, if you could please like, share, subscribe, download the podcast, review it in the review section on Spotify or Apple iTunes, and also if you could like and share it on Facebook too. Genuinely, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to do it. I'm really enjoying it. But for the people that come on, it is a big effort, and by sharing it, it helps them in relation to enhancing their personal brand and also enhancing their confidence as well. It's great to see people coming alive on social media after they've taken part in the podcast. So, as always, this week our coaching question is a very simple one, and it is, I'd imagine all of you, whether it's in your personal lives or in your professional life, you're encountering on some type of goal, and the goal could be something very small, like wanting to do something around your home, or it could be something very large, like wanting to move country. It doesn't really matter what the goal is, but we all have small little goals, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, lifetime type goals. And I want you to choose one of them. And I want you to stop for a moment and think, by not achieving this goal, what is the benefit to you? So by not achieving your goal, how does that benefit you? And that might seem like a strange question, but if you think for a moment, something as simple as giving up smoking as being a goal, by not giving up smoking, even though there's loads of benefits to giving up smoking, there's also a huge amount of benefits to you as a person to continue smoking. For example, there's a social element to it, there's the ability to relax, chill out, etc. So it's important, whatever your goal is, to consider the benefits of not choosing it, because they could actually be self-sabotaging your efforts to achieve that goal. And by helping to bring them to your awareness, you have a greater chance then of achieving what you want to achieve. So that brings me then to this week's guest. A couple of months ago, I was very, very honored, to be honest with you. I was asked to speak at Clongowes Wood College, which is a prestigious second level school here in Ireland. And I was asked to speak about careers in the tech industry, putting a particular focus on sales, business development, and marketing. And I wanted to give the lads in the school a couple of different options and different career paths that they could take. So what I did as part of the presentation that it is, I got a couple of different examples of people who had roles in each area, and then told their stories. And I reached out to Siobhan because I know she's involved in marketing, and she sent me like a 20-minute, 30-minute voice recording about her career story, and it was fantastic. And a huge amount of it landed with me, and found it quite inspirational. And we're going to talk about it, so I don't want to talk about it too much. But just one major thing that jumped out at me was, well, number one, her honesty, but her ability to be able to identify skills within a role and then leverage those cross transferable skills to help her move through her career. Because That is one of the key elements that I see with people who are successful, who are able to move into different roles versus those who are able to identify those skills and then leverage them. And if you think about anything in life, I know for myself, and being involved in athletics and music and now in sales for the last number of years, it's it's that ability to be able to execute the fundamental skills of the role at a high level that helps you to be successful, and then break the skill down so you can practice it and implement it better and better each time. So, going to hand it over to Siobhan, hear her story. And as I just said before, please like, share, download, all that kind of crack is really, really helpful. Hey, Siobhan, thanks a million for joining me today and being a guest in this week's podcast. So, one of the reasons that I actually asked Siobhan to come on it was because a couple of months ago I was speaking to a school, and Siobhan popped into my head and she sent me over a brilliant video about her career, and there was some great learnings from it. And I thought it would be brilliant to share those with the rest of you. So, Siobhan, you might kick things off and start by telling us a little bit about the current job that you have and what it entails.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks a million, Conal, for having me on. Very excited to contribute. And I've listened to a few episodes before, and they've all been great. So fair play to you. So I work at HubSpot. For those of you who aren't familiar with HubSpot, HubSpot is a leading CRM platform that provides software to support companies and people to grow better. My role at HubSpot at the moment is on the international marketing team. I report to our Vice President of International Marketing, and I manage a team which is known internally as the International Champions. I have tried to rebrand ourselves internally, but everyone likes to be called the Champions, so that's what we are, the International Champions. And really, it's a cross-functional team which looks after customer, website strategy, product marketing strategy, partner enablement strategies all across our geos outside of North America. So it's a really busy role. We have over 100,000 customers in more than 120 customers, and my team covers both English and non-English speaking regions. So our non-English speaking regions are French, Spanish, German, Portuguese, and Japanese. We work really, really closely with each of our smaller regional teams in those areas. And we ensure that our bigger, more central teams are executing strategies with a global mindset.
Okay, very good.
Very, very busy.
Yeah, absolutely. What's it like trying to stay across all those different cultures, Siobhan?
Yeah, it's really, really challenging. And like people ask me all the time, how do you adapt to each of those cultures and get to know how to work in all of these those languages and those areas? And really, it comes down to three things. That's listening, learning, and asking questions. It really is as simple as that. And when I started working on international markets back in 2015, I suppose at this stage, my first markets were France and Germany. And I'd spend my Friday sitting on the sales floor because Fridays were a little bit more relaxed. So I'd sit with the French and German sales team, and just to get to know them better, I'd go to their sales meetings. I'd learn about why they were winning or losing deals. I'd shadow support sales and success calls where I could, and you just learn a lot from listening. I've been really, really lucky as well. Just as I moved on to other markets, I got to go to Tokyo to spend some time with the team there. And I suppose I'd been working with the Japanese marketing team for about a year before I went, and I just wish I'd gone to Japan far sooner. It was the most eye-opening experience. I finally learned what it was stopping me being as effective as I could have been with that team. Their culture, their norms, their ways of working, communication, it's just so different to Western cultures. And the only way that I could learn was by immersing myself in their team for a few weeks to, as I said, listen, learn, and ask questions. I suppose there are probably two other things that have helped too. We have great regional directors in Japan, Latin America, EMEA, and APAC. And they really have become my sparring partners. I ask them for advice whenever I have a problem that I need to solve. I know that how I go about solving a problem in Latin America might be far different and far more casual to how I need to go about it in Germany, for example. And making peace with the fact that I need to invest the time in solving the same problems in different ways across our different geographies has really, really helped. And finally, I read an amazing book called The Culture Map. by Erin Meyer. And if my team listens to this podcast, they will just die laughing because I'm always talking about it. And I just wish I read it sooner. It's all about how to work with different cultures, from low context cultures to high contact cultures, how to communicate, how to give feedback, how to navigate different hierarchies. And it really, really just is amazing. And anyone who works in a global organization should read it. So it's The Culture Map by Erin Meyer.
Brilliant. It's funny actually that you recommended that, because somebody I've never heard of it, but I'm going to read it. Somebody texted me last week wondering, did I know of any good books? So I'm going to reach out to him and recommend that one to him today. I didn't have any for him, actually. That's brilliant. How did you get into marketing, Siobhan?
Well, I did commerce at NUI Galway, so I started the course back in 2006, thinking that I wanted to be an accountant. And then in second year, I took a marketing module, and I just fell in love with the mix of strategy and creativity. And from then on, I just didn't want to do anything else. So that's the top and bottom of that.
I work with an awful lot of people who come into business development who want to get into marketing. What kind of advice would you have for people who maybe want to go down that path?
I think the most important thing is probably learning yourself. Marketing is a really, really fast moving industry, and you have to show that you can learn by yourself. There are tons of free resources, courses, online networking, online learning events out there that you can learn a ton from. So when you go to apply for a marketing job, as a hiring manager myself, I want to see the marketing that you can do, not that you can get a 1-1 in your degree. Like, I want you to show me a successful YouTube channel that you've created. I want you to show me an Instagram page that you've built with huge engagement, a podcast that's thriving. Show me that you have the drive to figure things out yourself, and you don't need your hand to be held, I suppose, as you go through your journey into marketing. And just, I guess, learning the transferable skills that you've learned in your previous role that you can bring into marketing. So I think there's a lot of project management in marketing. There's a lot of stakeholder management. So really leaning into those transferable skills that you can bring with you into marketing is really important.
You mentioned skills there, and in that little video you sent me a few months ago, I was impressed by your ability to identify skills no matter what role you were working in. Tell me a little bit about your time in Oz and some of the skills that you learned there that you're still leveraging today.
Yeah, it's funny. My Australian story is kind of funny. I went over to Australia thinking I have a first class honours master's in marketing. People are going to be tripping over themselves to hire me, and that just wasn't the case. And after 4 weeks of spending all my money, and my money was running out, I quickly learned that I just had to take whatever I got. And you learn very quickly that you have to work hard to get noticed and to continue to get noticed. So my first job in Australia was actually with a company called TransLink. And TransLink are kind of like, I suppose, the bus Éireann of Ireland, but they look after all the bus stop networks around the place. So I was a bus stop inspector, and I was responsible for ensuring that bus stops were in line with health, safety and disability regulations. So I had steel toe cap boots, I had a hard hat, a trundle wheel, I was rock solid on the measuring tape, and I set off every day in a white pickup truck around Queensland with a map of these bus stops. And it may seem like the furthest thing in the world from marketing, but as you said, Conal, I just learned such transferable skills, from how to use Excel, which I still use every day, to project management, to working with contractors. I mean, today I'm still working a lot with freelancers and agencies to get my work done. I developed communication skills, briefing skills, time management, teamwork. All of these things have helped me in my career so far. And whatever role you're in, you will learn something that you will bring forward with you to your eventual destination. It was the same when I worked on the strawberry fields. So I had to do a stint on the strawberry fields in Malulabat, which is north of Brisbane, to get my second year visa. And I actually got fired as a strawberry picker because I was way too slow. And I went back and begged for my job, swallowed my pride, and I promised that I would be the best strawberry picker they had. And they took me back, and I really just learned the value and rarity of second chances. And I just realized how lucky I was to get that second chance, and it just showed me the value of hard work. And then I suppose the other thing that I took from Australia was that I went to Australia. This was before my HubSpot dream, which I'm sure we'll get onto. But I went to Australia with the dream of becoming a PR person, and my dream was to market celebrities. And this was what I did my thesis on when I did my master's, and I wanted it so bad. So I found a marketing position that paid me 3 to 4 days per week, so that I could live, earn money. And then I asked a well-known PR agency if I could just join them for 1 to 2 days in the office, unpaid, and learned what they were doing. And when I say I asked them, I badgered them for weeks until they let me into the office so I could be a fly on the wall to see what they were doing. So they let me. And I'm not advocating that anyone should work for free, but if you want something badly enough, you'll do whatever it takes to get there. And I went in there 1 to 2 days every week. I did whatever they asked of me. I learned, I listened, asked questions, and just watch what they were doing. And I guess my big learning from that was that, I didn't want to work in celebrity PR anymore. I absolutely hated it, and it was a really, really valuable lesson. But it also showed me that, like, I needed to jump through some hoops to actually realize that truth. So yeah, whatever, if you want something badly enough, you'll do whatever it takes to get it, and you'll always get something out of an experience, even if it seems like the furthest thing from where you want to be.
Yeah, I agree. And that, again, coming back to the little clip you sent me, that story resonated so much with me, because I used to coach people in a previous role on a leadership development program, and they'd come on and they'd be telling me, oh, this is my dream job, I really want to be a leader. And I would simply ask, well, tell me a little bit about what you're reading at the moment. And I wouldn't be reading anything. And then I'd be thinking, do you really want to be a leader? Like, and you're now the yardstick for what's needed if somebody wants to get into marketing, and the effort that you have put to it. You mentioned your HubSpot dream there. Tell us a little bit about the lengths that you've gone to or went to get that role.
Yeah, so I suppose I became familiar with HubSpot back in 2010 when I was doing my master's thesis. As I said, I did it on the topic of celebrity PR, and whenever I Googled anything, HubSpot kept popping up. And I kept getting lost in the blog content because it was just so helpful and practical. So I just learned so much from that. I thought to myself, this is a really cool blog. Off I went to Australia, had a few different jobs, as I said, but I always refer to the HubSpot blog when I needed to learn how to do something. So I came back from Australia to do a PhD, which I tried for a little while and I didn't like. So I started freelancing. I was a good writer, so I did a lot of writing for different companies around Mayo and Galway. And I taught myself how to build websites, manage social media, build and optimize social media ads, like graphic design. I just learned a lot of that on the HubSpot blog itself, and I just became more and more of a fangirl. So I quickly realized that I needed a little bit more structure in my life, that I wasn't ready to work for myself. I'd never really worked properly in a marketing position. So I joined a really cool marketing agency in Dublin called Wolfgang Digital. And I was there for a couple of years. I learned a ton. It was the best learning experience of my life. I worked on some really cool clients, from Red Bull to Little Woods, UNICEF Ireland. I started speaking at various different conferences, and I started to hear more and more and more about HubSpot in my everyday life. And this was 2013. And that's around the time HubSpot started opening their Dublin office. And I got really excited when I heard this. I was like, oh my God, HubSpot's opening a Dublin office. I could get a job there. And that just really started sowing a seed. So I spent more and more time on the blog, downloading ebooks, and I just became obsessed with what the company was doing. And I set my eyes on working there within a few years. So I started learning as much as I could about HubSpot. As I said, I did a HubSpot trial. And then when it came to look for a new job, I decided my best way forward if I wanted a job at HubSpot was to learn how to use the HubSpot software. So I decided to find a role in a company that I knew was a HubSpot customer. So I did that, joined the company where I could learn all I needed to learn about using HubSpot itself. And then at the same time, so this would have been like July 2014. At the same time, I set up a company with my friend called Mark Scully called Learn Inbound. And we set out really to bring in globally recognized inbound marketing speakers to Dublin. We had both been at so many different marketing conferences in Dublin, and it was the same people saying the same thing at all the events. So we just wanted to diversify perspectives in Dublin. So we brought in inbound marketing speakers from the UK, Europe, and the US. But another reason, apart from diversifying perspectives in Dublin, was that I wanted to position myself as someone who knew something about inbound marketing to HubSpot. So by the time I applied for a job at HubSpot, they would know me as like someone who knew about inbound marketing in Dublin. And it worked. It was such a busy few months trying to balance the new job with the HubSpot customer and setting up my own business. And looking back, I'm really not sure how I did it all, but it was worth it, because 4 months into my new role, I got an email from Kieran Flanagan at HubSpot. And he's still there. He's senior vice president. And he was asking me if I was interested in a role. I was like, oh my God, this is my dream job. 4 months into my big plan to get my job at HubSpot. And a few interviews later, I started my dream job, and that was December 1st, 2014, and I haven't looked back since. So that was my great big 5-year plan to get a job at HubSpot, and it came to fruition after just a few months. So I was incredibly lucky.
Brilliant. How have you developed yourself, Siobhan, to move from when you started with HubSpot to where you are now, leading a global team?
It was really, really hard, because I spent so many years as an individual contributor, and I loved being an individual contributor. And just because I was great at that job, I really did think that moving into managing a global team, that it would be easy because I was so good at global marketing, but the transition has been really, really hard. And I think that transition has actually been the most surprising thing about being a manager, and how hard it actually was. It's a completely different set of skills. As an individual contributor, you spend your days working, like doing work that you're responsible for. And as a manager, you're ensuring that your team is doing the right work in terms of priority, making sure that gets communicated to leadership, and you have to learn to trust that someone else is doing a great job and trusting others to do the work. It was a really hard thing for me to learn, because I know we had a chat there before we started, Conal. I like to be in control of the situation, and like you do kind of give away some of that control when you become a manager. And management also comes with a lot of emotion and reading situations, and you almost have to be a different person to everyone. And what I mean by that is, if you have 4 direct reports on your team, you generally have 4 different personalities at different stages in their career, who require different levels of support and styles of communication. And it can be absolutely exhausting. You really, really have to love people to do it. And thankfully, I love people, and I think I'm doing an all right job. But when you ask people, why do you want to be a manager, like that answer should revolve around people.
Yeah, big time. Tell me, you've been working from home for a long time now, so you didn't have the same level of, I suppose, adaptiveness like the rest of us this time last year. But yeah, what's it like working remotely all of the time?
It's funny. People ask me, "Oh, how has working remotely during COVID gone?" And honestly, my biggest adjustment has been having my husband at home working in the next room. Because, as you said, I've been working from home for a while, so I find it empowering, to be honest. I've been working remotely for 3.5 years now. I was one of the first HubSpot employees to go remote in EMEA, and I can honestly never imagine working in an office full time ever again. Now, I do think that my role as an international marketer lends itself well to remote working, because I do work across time zones. But, it has allowed me to live the life that I want to live, and it has enabled me to move from Dublin to Galway. I live in the countryside. It suits my personality so much more. I'm less stressed. I organise my days as I wish. I get my housework done. I get the gym in. I can go for a walk, eat well, spend time with my husband. I'm closer to my actual home. But it was a hard transition, I won't lie. Switching off from work is really challenging in the beginning, and it can And it still can be, even now, 3.5 years later, when work is really, really busy. Sometimes you just forget to turn your laptop off and walk away from it, and you need to be reminded to do so. You know, you really have to be in control of your own life. You have to set boundaries for yourself, or you'll be on 24/7. I had really bad imposter syndrome at the beginning as well, where I thought that if I wasn't on all the time, my manager might think that I wasn't working, or I'd tell her every time I got up to make coffee. But she quickly reassured me that she trusted me. But that was one challenge that I know lots of people had when they went to work remotely first, when COVID hit, was that like fear of thinking that their manager thought that they weren't doing enough work, or the work that they should be doing. But genuinely, I think if you can embrace remote working, and I would say it's remote working isn't for every personality, but if you can embrace it and make the best of it, I genuinely think that it is such an empowering thing. And I've genuinely done the best work of my career since I moved remote, and it's shown in my career growth since going remote too. And I think the impact on my career growth was my number one concern when I made the decision to move to Galway. But I think I've been lucky. I've had 2 different managers since working remote, and both of them have been remote themselves. So I think the empathy that brings kind of made my transition that little bit easier.
What advice would you have for people managing remotely?
I could speak for days on this, Connell, but I'll give you my top tips. I think as a remote manager, it is important that you go above and beyond in creating a psychologically safe environment for your team. So that's a team environment where people aren't afraid to speak up, share their thoughts and feelings, to raise issues when they need to be raised without the worry of them being judged. And one way we do this at HubSpot is by encouraging people to create almost like user guides, although I don't like to call them user guides because I think it makes people sound like an inanimate object. I like to call them way I work documents. So it's a document that explains how people like to work, when they start in the morning, how they like to receive feedback, what makes them happy, what motivates them. Because when you're remote, it's really, really hard to get that kind of insight, to really get to know your team and to build relationships with them, as the meetings tend to be more transactional when you're remote. I don't know if you found that yourself, Conor.
Yeah.
But compared to, when you're in the office and you'd engage in more small talk, and those user guides are really helpful when new people join the team as well. It just kind of fast tracks getting to know someone.
It's a brilliant idea, yeah.
I think also it's really important to celebrate too. I think in the office, it's really easy for someone to pop out at lunchtime, get a cake if someone hits a goal or a milestone or has a birthday, but it's not so easy to do that remotely. And celebrating as a team is something that brings the team really close together. So as a manager, I always make a special effort to send virtual birthday cards, and I get all the close stakeholders that they work with to sign them. And sometimes you can get a virtual card with like 30 or 40 people who signed it and sent thoughtful messages, and that really creates a really nice sense of belonging. And I send thoughtful gifts where budget allows as well. So whether it's a bunch of flowers to celebrate someone buying a house, which is a very big deal, or a plant to cheer someone up who's missing home, because I have lots of international people on my team who aren't necessarily able to see their family at this time, because they're stuck in Ireland and can't go back to wherever they're from. Or even like nice food vouchers for someone's birthday or anniversary. Just that little something to help create a sense of community and belonging is really, really important. One thing I'm really passionate about as a remote manager actually is feedback. I think it's really, really important, both giving and receiving both positive and constructive feedback. It's just so important to be active in this. Working remotely, it's really easy to shy away from it than ever before. And I think as Irish people as well, we're inherently like, oh, I can't tell them that they didn't do something as well as it could be. I think that's just in our nature. But that doesn't help anyone. So by the time my team's performance reviews come around, I really try to strive for a conversation that is a summary of, the conversations we've had week on week before that. And I constantly ask for feedback myself too. And thankfully, we have some really great mechanisms in place for teams to give feedback to their managers regularly. But generally, I just ask and they're very forthcoming. And I think the last thing that, which is really fresh in my mind today, is how important onboarding is. Kind of like, I have a new person starting on my team today, and first impressions are everything. And if you have a new person joining a team, it's really important to make them feel welcome, and if they belong from day one, and it sets people up for success. From day one. And it's really important that you don't allow them to feel the distance between you when you're remote. So from sending a welcome gift and messages of support to engaging in team bonding activities. Like, I have a really silly game that I play with the team called Scriblio. It's like this Pictionary online. It's full of ads, and it's so silly, but it just gets everyone laughing. To ensuring that they have a really clear, documented, detailed onboarding plan with very regular scheduled check-ins. I just think it's really important, because if someone doesn't have a good start on a remote team, especially if it's their first time being on a remote team, it's really hard to turn things around, I think.
Yeah, I definitely find that a challenge, the new hire piece, and getting everybody involved and onboarded, because I think we are so busy ourselves. It's just trying to make them the time for them and make them feel special and engaged, and in those first few weeks, because it is daunting.
It is, and I think it's often overlooked as a manager. Like, it's a huge task for a manager to take on, to onboard someone. But we have a really good thing at HubSpot, where we have 100-day plan, and you have specific milestones that you set out for, like 30 days, 60 days, and 100 days, and it's broken down into really nice digestible chunks. But as well as that, like that onboarding 100-day plan, it serves as their kind of index for their first 3 months at HubSpot. So it'll have all the Slack channels they need to join, all the people that they need to prioritize meeting, because sometimes when you're joining, especially remotely, but like even in the office, and when you're joining a huge multinational company, you often don't know where to start when it comes to setting meetings up with people to get to know them. So it's really a really valuable document.
Yeah, big time. I completely agree. And just to on the point you made about sending out little virtual cards and that kind of thing, a couple of months ago I was lucky enough to win a little quarterly award, and Kareen, the VP's assistant, sent out certs, and it was such a nice thing to get in the post. It wasn't expected, but it does make a huge difference, and it is important to do those kind of things. Tell me, just as we begin to come to a close, where do you see the role of a leader and the manager evolving to over the next 10 years, we'll say?
Wow, that is a big question. Where do I see it evolving to? I think that it's just going to become more and more about, innovative ways of developing people while remote. I don't think remote working is going anywhere, and I think that the way people manage is going to have to, innovate, change, support people's growth online, and really pave way for building successful stakeholder relationships that aid the success and longevity of companies. And I think that it's not just up to someone as a manager to keep up with those that continuous innovation, but also, like, we need to rely on the government a lot to pass different laws to support remote working as we go forward as well into the next decade. And I just think that the way of work is just going to be completely different this time 10 years time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting. Just lastly there, you mentioned it somewhat along the way that, when you're, as a hiring manager, you're looking for skills and what a person has done rather than their 1-1, but you have a strong academic background, and maybe just 2 points to it. First of all, how did that benefit you now in your working career? And secondly, any recommendations for anyone listening to resources they could lean into, which would help them develop themselves?
Yeah, my academic career has been a rocky one. So I always did well in college, but I think it's taught me like a lot of grit and determination, to always do my best, and dedication. And that's really I think that's really what you take from a third level education, is that, like, you know, that practice to always be determined and be dedicated. I've always been insanely competitive academically, Conal, and I've carried that into my career. I want to lead the best team that I can, and always do 100%. Funnily enough, I actually hated international marketing when I was in college. And if you told me back then what I'd be doing now, I would have laughed. But I think the most important lesson, though, that you know, my academic career has taught me is that just around my PhD, I mentioned my PhD earlier. I did a year of a PhD back in 2011 to 2012, and I did my PhD for two reasons. And the first one was ego, and it took me a long time to accept that that's one of the reasons I did my PhD. I wanted to be Dr. Siobhán McGinty, and the second thing was that I wanted to lecture and teach people and instill the same passion that I have for marketing into the younger generation. So I did the PhD for a year. I absolutely hated it. I was unhappy. My mental health was suffering. I knew keeping going wasn't the right thing for me to do, but I didn't know how to get myself out of it, because I'd never quit or failed anything before in my life, except when I got fired as a strawberry picker. But I spoke to my parents, who were so supportive, and they gave me the confidence to step away from it. And, you know, it really was the most challenging decision of my life. I was doing really well. I was getting on really well. Like, I was well on my way to having some papers published. I presented my research at conferences, but I was just so unhappy. So quitting my PhD has taught me how to make hard decisions, and also make me think through big decisions with more thought and confidence. And it really was a turning point in not only my career, but also my life. And also, I managed to become a lecturer. I have spent the last 8 years lecturing at 2 master's level, with various institutes around the country, as I had wanted. So, you know, coming back to my point, Conal, you know, where there's a will, there's always a way. You'll always figure out a way to do what you want to do. In terms of, you know, different resources that I suggest to people if they do want to upskill, you know, I wouldn't be a HubSpotter without suggesting the HubSpot Academy. We have some really, really great courses on there that are free, and it's a great starting point if you want to start dipping your toe in the water with inbound marketing, but also like more specific marketing topics like search engine optimization, and even like, you know, business leadership and all that kind of stuff. There's some stuff in there as well. But, you know, there's lots of different like online Harvard courses that you can take. There's you know, those Udemy courses. I've just been enrolled in I think it's called Masterclass, which is a really, really good learning online platform as well. So there's lots of different ways of learning what you want to learn out there. So
brilliant. Super stuff, Siobhan. Maybe I might just summarize 3 major takeaways for me would be, well, first of all, your ability to identify and develop your skills, and whether it be from, you know, different roles that you've done along the way, but with the kind of end in mind as to where you wanted to go. Also, your ability to embrace failure and learn from it is fantastic too. You finished off with a story around your PhD there, and that was great awareness that you had to be able to, you know, admit that it was your ego that was driving it, because I'm actually going through a similar process myself at the moment. I'm thinking, do I want to do a master's, or is it just that I want to do a master's so I can say I did the master's, you know? So it's brilliant. And then the final piece that I want to pick out is the creativity and the energy that you're bringing to your remote leadership, which is brilliant. And you've given me some great things to take away and work on there. So thanks.
Great, I'm glad, Conal. And yeah, you know, as to why you want to do the masters, ask yourself exactly why do you want to do it. And I say that to my own team all the time. If anyone on the team wants to be a manager, I'm like, why do you want to be a manager? Do you see it as being like the next step in your promotion or in your career and the only way to grow? And I think it was the last episode actually of this podcast, was it Judith that was on? Or Janice.
Yeah, Janice. Janice.
Yeah. And she, you know, she just made a point around like, you can be such a successful individual contributor, and you don't need to be a people manager in order to be successful. So you need to ask yourself, why do you want to do that master's? Why do you want to be a people manager? Why do you want to do the next thing? Is it because you think that that's the only thing that you can do to progress? And often there is different paths that you can take to progress that might not necessarily be very clear to you.
Mm-hmm. And it's even maybe just pulling out the things in the management job that you might like, and then again, going back to your point about the skills, finding ways within your own role that you can work
Exactly.
on those. Yeah.
Exactly. And if it is in management, if you do want to be if you think you want to be a manager and it's like, oh, I just want to help to grow people, well, be a mentor first. Mentor more junior people on your team, or more junior people on other teams, and help them grow and see, do you actually enjoy it? Because you don't really know until you try.
Yeah, big time. Cool. All right, Siobhan, that was great. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Conal.
Brilliant stuff, Siobhan. Thanks a million for making time to come on the podcast this week. Thanks to everyone who's listened. Hope you took something from what Siobhan has shared. Please, everyone, enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. It's a bank holiday. And whatever you're doing, remember, get involved.